Fatigue, exhaustion, brain fog, and digestive issues are very common symptoms of many diseases. But did you know that they could also be symptoms of a parasite? Most people think a parasite is something you mainly get after traveling to a third world country. But in today's world, you can get them from just about anywhere. Undercooked foods, fruits and veggies that are not washed, even from letting your pet sleep in the same bed as you can just about guarantee you a parasite in some form. After feeling all icky about that, the question is, how do you get rid of it? There are many herbs on the market for dealing with this, but I think it's important to understand why most parasites stay in your body versus the body getting rid of it. So I've invited the best master herbalist I know, Mitch Coben from Vitality Works, to give us an herb class on this very topic. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. I wanted to bring you on for really a main topic, but I do have some questions before we get to that. I know, first off, you're celebrating your 40 years at Vitality Works, correct?
Yeah, blink of the eye. Started Vitality Works 40 years ago in 1982. So this is entering our 40th year.
That is awesome. At least you get to sort of do that post-COVID now, right? Which is sort of a good thing. We hit our 50 years right when COVID started, so we never got to celebrate properly.
Yeah. We had our first company-wide meeting yesterday, and I lamented how in the last 2 years we haven't been able to get together and celebrate successes and being here and doing such great work. And so hopefully we can get back to more celebrations.
Oh, I know you will. The celebration's there, and I know your company is growing by leaps and bounds because just the information and what you bring to this industry is always amazing. So I really appreciate your time today and being here.
Yeah,
so,
thanks. I appreciate it.
My main conversation wants to really focus on parasites and yeast cleansing and so forth. Before we get to that, since I have you here today, let's go ahead and talk about what should we be doing in a post-COVID environment right now? What should we be taking or really focusing on? That's where everybody's attention is starting to lead towards.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about some generalities because, of course, we always want to individuate what our needs are because everybody's a little bit different. So that's my disclaimer. There's no one thing that everybody needs usually.
That's right.
The common things are a lot of things that all of us need. And I think we spent the last 2 years just doing immune boosting and, trying to not get COVID and keep our immune system as strong as possible so we can handle a bigger viral load and not get sick. But quite frankly, that's been the idea forever. In the season when viruses and bacteria are going around, do more immune boosting things, be
That's
wise.
Right.
So, because it's around, you're always around it. Why do you get sick and when do you get sick? And so let's increase our defenses so we can handle more. Let's be stronger and safer. So now we're at a point where let's, say the viral load is lower out there right now. But I think we've all gone through, and everyone's, you're reading about it and people are talking about how stressful it's been and the social isolation and the stress about financial matters. And a lot of people have been impacted by loved ones, friends and family who've gotten sick. Some have passed away. I've got a handful of folks close to me that have passed away in the last 2 years. We haven't had a lot of outlets socially. So I think there's a lot of pent up anxiety, stress, depression, mood swings. Some of us, like myself, I doubled down and exercised twice as much as I ever did before because I was home.
Exactly.
And so, but some of us got in a chair and sat back and pounded the Cheetos or whatever and went the other way and put on pandemic pounds.
That's right.
So, right now, I think that we're in somewhat of a recovery phase. And I think a lot of phases of life are either building up or we're breaking down. When we're building up, we're anabolic. And you think of when you're young, you're an anabolic steroidal teenager, and you're building up and you're strong. And later in life, moving toward death, you're catabolic, you're breaking down, your body doesn't heal anymore. And we're always in certain phases of that. And so I look at myself, I injure myself. Do I heal as fast as I used to? If I get a cold, do I heal as fast as well? Do I recover fast? And that's a sign to look at. Am I generally still really strong and I'm anabolic, or am I breaking down and things aren't the same? And we want to watch for that. And I think the last 2 years have been kind of a catabolic process. It's like, I think we all need to be building up the way our hormonal system works. Maybe we spent the last couple of years building up immunity, but are we digesting okay? Are we sleeping okay? Are we emotionally, mentally in a good place? a lot of people are struggling. So I think we need to be focusing on being more anabolic and building up reserves. And, we have a category of things, there's behaviors like that, right? Exercising, stretching, meditation, especially exercising, eating well, all the right livelihood things that we all already know we could and should do. But if this is herb class and supplement herb class, and it is, we want to be using the group of botanicals even more than in the past called adaptogens. And we talk about them forever. I've talked about them for 30 years, but I think especially now, the group of herbs called adaptogens allow us hormonally to adapt to those stresses of social isolation, of maybe not exercising enough, putting on some pandemic pounds, and the emotional mental trials that we go through, the kids being at home, and
all the stress.
It's really been stressful, and not enough outlets to neutralize it. That's the problem. You build up so much stress, your body starts to break down, but you can build up how much you can handle before you break down in the category of herbs called adaptogens. And you take those before you do break down, so you don't have recurrences of your chronic stuff. Call it a UTI, call it allergies, call it emotional mental stuff, digestive stuff, psoriasis, eczema, irritable bowel,
mood swings, all of it,
right? So I do think right now, the Adrenal RX formulation, for instance, is a grouping of herbs such as, Eleuthero, which used to be called Siberian ginseng, and cordyceps, and the king and queen these days, ashwagandha, schizandra, licorice, the ginsengs. And they're all really good and have other aspects to them. I got my printer's going off in the background. Okay. I tried to print about an hour ago. Now it's responding. But they all build you up anabolically. That's what they do. And it's not like anabolic steroids. So let's not go to that realm. They're not strong like that. They don't have side effects.
That's right.
But they build up how your hormonal system responds to stress before you break down. And then you can kind of get into specific ones later on about that will help you more secondarily, what they might do. Some are better for muscle pain, fibromyalgia. Some are better for oxygenation, like rhodiola. Ashwagandha has an affinity for neuromuscular conditions. But all of them work in the pituitary and hypothalamus and eventually the adrenals, so that we can stress modulate and not break down and stay anabolic and heal and recover better. And no matter how much stress you have, you sleep better without maybe even needing valerian or melatonin, right? So I've been taking adaptogens for 40 years every day because they don't do anything today. They're cumulative, just like you exercise once and you're not suddenly fit. You do it all the time as a lifestyle because life isn't perfect. We don't live perfectly. So the adaptogens like Adrenal RX, the American ginseng, ashwagandha, liquids, capsules, all of those are great. And you add them to your one-a-day thing that you do. You just take some every day forever until you're living on the island with no stress.
That's exactly right. Whenever that day comes, right?
Yeah. So, so post-pandemic, that's true. And, we're not out of the COVID viral stuff that's going on. It could mutate again. There could be more strains coming around. So we could all benefit from taking D3 now, because none of us are outside enough anyways for immune boosting. And, the elderberries and the echinaceas, again, they're not heroic when you're really sick, but taking them all the time so you're on a little bit more alert all the time so you can handle more viral load as it's coming around. And again, we're not in the worst phase of it, but we're still in the phase of it. And so we can go out in public and be around folks and not get sick. And I've been using those daily forever. And knock on wood, I don't think I've had a cold in the 20 plus years. I've never had a flu shot. I stay boosted. I stay strong with our botanicals. And it's, the Immuno-Well RX formulation. It's echinacea, it's elderberry, it's, zinc, it's D3. And so you just add them in because that's the world we live in.
That's right. And that's a great point you made. I mean, I know for the last couple of years, everybody has been focused on just immune boosting, and that's really what they focused on. But now we sort of need to move to that stress response side of those adaptogen herbs to really maintain what stress is doing to our body and all those categories you mentioned before.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. And you know, maybe when the pandemic's that's the worst phase, there's a lot more. Maybe you're taking immune boosters more than once a day or larger quantities. As it phases down, you can phase down.
That's right. That's
So
right.
you don't have to take as many or as much, maybe just once a day, and off you go, and don't worry about it.
That's right. And Mitch, that leads me to really my main topic, because we understand a lot more about how stress is impacting our gut, our digestive system, and so
Right.
forth. So now we're seeing, because of a lot of different stresses, we're seeing more fungal infections, gut issues, digestion problems, constipation, all these the environment's being created for a lot of bad bacteria to thrive, really. And so we understand how stress is connected to that, because that stress can suppress our stomach acid and create a digestive environment that really causes problems. So let's speak to the parasite, the fungal, the yeast side. What can we do to get that back in balance and create a healthier environment? What kind of herbs or supplements should we be looking at for that?
Yeah, and I'm going to break that down and talk about it in two different
Please.
sections.
Okay.
One is, how do you stay in a good place to limit that from even occurring, versus I have a problem, what should I take now? Because they're different. And so it's important to note, as you mentioned, Brian, that normally if we're secreting a lot of digestive enzymes, it's really hard to get parasitic and yeast infections.
Yeah,
so we're supposed to secrete lots of hydrochloric acid and bile and pepsin and lipase and all these digestive enzymes. And when that occurs, it actually creates an acidic digestive pH, because hydrochloric acid is like acid. It dissolves a cow into amino acids, or tofu or peanut butter into amino acids.
That's right. That's right.
And you got to have enough of that. And so that acid, that when it goes into your small intestine, is super acidic. And guess what? It also kills parasites if they're around. They can't be there. And good flora like acidophilus is acid loving. It's partly what it means. A lot of people think we should be alkaline. That's your blood.
That's right.
It's not your digestive slurry. And that's what a lot of people miss. So when we're under a lot of stress, as you're mentioning, we tend not to secrete as much. And so we have less of an acidic digestive pH. So you're more prone to getting these things that they're always there. Yeah. It's just environmental. That's life.
Exactly.
So to prevent that from happening and staying in a good place, you want to make sure you're secreting really well, for one. And that's where we usually look at digestive bitters, just as a daily thing, if that's your issue. And so Digestes is a liquid formulation that includes things like gentian and an herb called blue flag and some other botanical organ grape. And they make you secrete digestive enzymes. Yep. So we can take digestive enzymes, and that's good. And you can get them that way. I always recommend, though, that take things that make your own at the same time. You ever hear when someone says, like, hey, just before you eat, relax, take a deep breath before you pound your food. Taking a deep breath elicits a relaxation response to remove adrenaline that makes you secrete more. A deep breath has a physiologic consequence through what's called the vagus nerve in your neck.
That's right.
It's a real thing. This is herb class. So these bitter herbs that have been used in European traditions, where you take maybe a bitter herbal tonic before you eat as a digestive aid, is the real deal, because the compounds that are bitter send a message from the taste buds to your brain, to your digestive organs, to make those digestive enzymes. So that's a miss sometimes when some people are treating things like candida and yeast infections. They take things to kill it because they got it. It's going to come right back if you're the petri dish that allow it to be there.
That's right.
So you want to change why you can have that, and that's holistic medicine. Let me be so healthy I can't have that disease. That's why when you do preventatively, how do I live the cure? So I don't have to take all this stuff, whether it's natural or pharmaceutical, in the second place. So taking things like digestive bitters, Digestes, we have the digestive relief sprays. Those bitter compounds make you secrete digestive enzymes. And as a reminder, once you start to secrete bile, which is made in your liver, concentrate in your gallbladder, squirts into your small intestine, when that happens, it creates a peristaltic wave that also helps to ensure regularity in your lower intestine, which is called your colon, so that you have normal, regular bowel movements, which happen when you secrete a healthy amount of digestive enzymes. And so sometimes even instead of taking laxatives, if you're a little bit sluggish, you don't even need those if you take digestive bitters, because the secondary aspect of secreting the enzymes allow for more regularity. So traveling to a third world country that may have parasites, take your bitters. Eating funky food, take your bitters. Really stressed out, take your bitters, because this is going to affect your digestion. So I like that concept. Or eat bitters. They'll tend to be dark leafy greens in your food, not iceberg lettuce. They don't have that characteristic, but dark leafy greens. So, so that's really important to get that digestive juice. You want to be juicy inside. Because it corrects for digestive pH, and you can't have all those yeast infections, candida. Remember, people say, I want to have a good acidophilus. That it translates as acid loving.
That's true.
So, yep. And then you have a good system. It prevents leaky gut and irritable bowel and cranky colon. You got to secrete up above to be healthy down below.
That's exactly right. And that's what most people are not. They don't have enough stomach acid there because of so many reasons, but stress is one of the big priorities right now.
Yeah.
So it's very true.
So in a preventative model, we can even say doing anything to relax will help you to secrete better. Yes. Just if it's exercise, meditation, prayer, taking herbs that make you relax, like kava. Because kava decreases adrenaline to make you relax versus something like valerian, which actually makes you sleepy to relax. So it'll have that same effect, but commonly just want to relax and it's not bedtime. Be knocked out. So the kava products help you to just decrease adrenaline, or our formulation called Kava Gold. That's the orientation, less adrenaline, so I can just like a deep breath. And my body, a lot of bodily functions self-normalize because we're chronically stressed.
That's why we say rest and digest, right? I mean,
rest and digest.
You got to be able to rest to digest.
I wish we had some of the old world European models. Go have a lunch and go take a nap.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's a great model. They do a lot better with digestion than we do as Americans, for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom to it. Physiologically, you can correlate it. So, and if people are pounding fast foods and eating quickly and going right back at it, it's a setup for issues that are behavioral.
Which is why antacids, which are why antacids are so popular today, because of that reason.
Yeah, there's so many digestive problems. I bet it's a top 3 reason people come to the store and they're looking for help naturally, because they can't find it in other places.
Exactly.
Where do you go?
And that's what I like about what you're saying is you're talking about creating a healthy environment again, so that bacteria and yeast won't even grow or become an overgrowth problem.
Right. So it's good to understand why you have a system dysfunction that secondarily leads to a disease.
That's right.
And the Western medical model treats the disease, it doesn't treat the why. And that's a holistic model.
That's exactly right.
So we want to talk about all of it. So, we're talking about this holistic model of the why, the system dysfunction.
Yes.
So, the bitters are wonderful to be taken. And, people say, oh, I'm afraid of how they're going to taste. It's like, we've just forgotten what bitters taste like. It's one of the 5 or 6 tastes that exist.
We want everything sweet. We only know sweet, right?
Yeah, sweet. Maybe salty.
Yeah, salty is the second one, yes.
Yeah. So bitter, after a while, at first you go, but after a while you actually start to crave it. It feels right. And sometimes you take some bitter, the digest relief, digest ease formulas, and you go, I feel like I could eat. I'm a little hungry. It's like, yeah, you're secreting and it needs something to work on. It's working. And after a while you go, I feel like I might have to go to the bathroom. And it's like, well, yeah, it's like everything's flowing, the rhythm of life.
That's the way the body should be working. Exactly. It's what should have been happening a long time ago.
Right.
And that's what I love about it. If you just set the stage for those things to happen, we don't have to worry about the overgrowth downstream. So what about the person, Mitch, who, okay, they're in a bad spot right now. They have overgrowth of those fungal infections or worried about parasitic issues at the time. What do we do for them?
There are quite a few botanicals that kill parasites, and they can kill candida or yeast. You just got to get them there. And almost every tradition, culture, place in the world knows about these things because this is not new. There have been parasites in water forever. So there's all kinds of old literature about what every culture did. Just ask your grandparents or great grandparents what they might know, because you only have to go back about that far and people kind of know. Mm-hmm. So we have a bunch of those products. So there's varying degrees of how this works. So quite frankly, the thing that's the broadest spectrum killer of parasites and yeast is oregano oil. I mean, that's one of the strongest things that comes in a dropper bottle or the capsules, because it's pretty pungent, spicy, hot tasting as a liquid, but it's super strong. And it's the steam distilled oil extract from oregano, which when you do that, primary compound is a phenolic compound called carvacrol. Lots of studies on this. You can read about it even at the NIH.gov site in peer-reviewed research papers, that this stuff will kill stuff. Again, it doesn't change why you have it. It's just how long do I need to take it? And say, well, when are you going to change your lifestyle, or when are you going to start to secrete so you don't need to take it? You know, so oregano oil, you can take it to kill parasites, whether in the gut mostly, upper or lower GI, mainly upper GI, but some lower GI. But also for candida yeast, it will help kill candida yeast. And it is something, quite honestly, if, I've traveled to third world countries where I know the water's bad, there's a higher chance that you're going to get stuff, South America, Africa, wherever. And that's a place where you can take something like oregano preventatively, because good luck. Yep. You're drinking bottled water, you're brushing your teeth with bottled water, and you forget and you have a drink with an ice cube in it. You take a shower and, something got in.
That's right.
And so I've been on trips, and I have had groups of people go on trips where the only people taking oregano oil are the only ones who did not get a parasitic infection repeatedly. Mm-hmm. So that's a situation. It's a traveler's friend. You take it once a day and, still do all the smart stuff. Yeah. And that can keep you in a good place. So that's one thing you can take.
Which is great, because oregano, at least most of our customers coming in, they're buying it for like sinus infections that maybe are fungal related or so forth, not realizing that it really is a parasitic type cleanse too.
Yeah.
In the GI tract.
There's certain pneumonias that can be fungally related. Sure. So there could be topical fungal infections. Some eczemas might be fungally related. Mm-hmm. So all of that responds to oregano oil. So, if you've got of course, there's always all the good floras and acidophilus blends and probiotics that one can be taking to help get the good stuff in there to find the right balance, because there's always some candida yeast in the gut. You want to keep it in check at the right amount. It's about finding that right balance and fostering that. By the way, fermented foods make you make good flora as well. Mm-hmm. So I think of pickles and sauerkrauts, kimchis, miso. Those things, if you eat a little bit every day, are good.
Mitch, I got a question that, a lot of people wonder if this is a myth or fact. So taking oregano oil, are you required to take a probiotic afterwards because it kills your bacteria? That's
a good question. And, we've gone through millions of bottles, hundreds of millions of doses for 30 plus years of our 40 years. And if in the literature, you don't read it. Does that mean it doesn't happen or just hasn't been studied? I don't know, but it's not in the literature to say, hey, be careful. You don't hear about, because we've gone through so much of it all over the world, we're not getting reports back that people are having good flora die off and getting all kinds of gut issues and lower GI, cramping, diarrhea, or negative responses. And I believe you're mostly absorbing the oregano oil before you end up in your large intestine, so that it's active in the small. It's active in the small intestine, which tends to not be where you have parasitic and yeast problems, more the large intestine. I think you're absorbing more of it, and it's circulating and being effective. So it does kill stuff, because if you take oregano oil, and we have a colloidal silver with oregano oil topical spray
Great
for
product.
topical yeast infections, right? You have that. And you can see topical yeasty type infections go away from that. So it does kill that topically. So that probably means I wouldn't want to do like a enema with some oregano oil in it, direct contact that way, because it's too much.
Yeah.
So so it's a good question, and it's a fair question, that we just don't see that effect from its usage. And we don't see any studies to show that it might be a cause for concern.
So it's not necessary to take a probiotic with oregano, then, is basically what I'm hearing you say. It's
No.
literature states.
No, but if you do want to take both for different reasons, I'd take them at different times.
I agree.
So they're not going down at the same time. Take them later in the day, take them apart, morning, evening.
Okay.
And that way you'll be sure that the oregano oil is not interfering with the probiotic that you're taking while it's still there all together in the stomach.
Well, it's active. That's right. Totally agree.
Yeah.
So what about the more common ones, the black walnut, wormwood?
Yeah.
When are people using this, and what for?
Yeah, so the category of action that kills parasites, there's two terms. One's called a vermifuge or an anthelmintic. And it's got like a diuretic. A diuretic makes you urinate, laxative moves your bowels. These are just medical terms for their mode of action. And green walnut, we use the hulls. We like to use the fresh hulls before they dry. So if people harvest walnut hulls fresh and we extract them, we get tens of thousands of pounds of extracting that stuff fresh off the tree. It's wild.
Whose job is that?
A bunch of people.
I bet it is.
Yeah, there's organic trees in the Midwestern part of the United States where people go up with cherry pickers and pick them off the trees, and we get the hulls next day air, and we're extracting enough to last that whole year, because they're only in that green stage and harvested once a year. A lot of people use it dry, and that's effective too. After it's dried, it turns more black. When it's fresher, it's greener. We use both, really. And wormwood as well. Wormwood kills parasites. There are compounds in wormwood that will do that. So you can take those as well. It's all by degree. Oregano oil is stronger. So it's a continuum of effectiveness. Garlic is effective. Mm-hmm. Clove is effective. Pomegranate seeds. If you eat pomegranates, you eat the seeds. That's an old world treatment. Pumpkin seeds have some anti-parasitic effects. So you see some places in the world where they chew on those because they know that. And that's fine. And they work. If you have parasites, I tend to can we get rid of them now or yesterday?
That's what most people want. How do I get rid of them yesterday? That's right.
But if you don't, also, we have a formula called Parasite, and it has green nut walnut hulls in it. And we also add an herb that comes from Central and South America called quassia. It's the bark from this tree. And I don't have it with me right now, but it's a wood that for hundreds of years, people knew that it kills parasites. We get the bark from the tree. And we have actual cups that if you take this, it's just a wood cup. And it's about 150 years old. And if you go into a well that's known to be contaminated and you scoop the water up into this cup and just let it sit for a while, it's like an infusion, like making a tea, because the wood cup is the cure, and it kills all the parasites, then you drink it. So you see these villages in Central and South America with contaminated wells, and the big buckets go down, pull them up, and they're made of quassia wood.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah. So I found that, I like to collect old apothecary things from all over the world, and I have thousands of artifacts. Some go back to the 1490s and then to now. And so from Lily from the late 1800s and all kinds of stuff. It's really fun. And so quassia that we still get from Central America, from the bark from this tree, and extract that. And that becomes a foundational part of our parasite formulation. And it has clove in it as well.
Yeah.
But in a formulation like that, if someone has parasites, then we tend to add things like there's an unusual herb called Garrya, because usually people with parasites have cramping issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an anti-cramping herb.
That makes sense.
And then we add like a real astringent herb, because people that tend to have a lot of parasites, you need astringents to tighten the tissue because it starts to inflame. Mm-hmm. So we're treating the whole system, so things to kill the parasites, but what else do you need? Let's not cramp as much, because you don't need to have that much diarrhea, because it's not going to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. And let's tonify the tissue, which is now inflamed with barberry, or bayberry, and that'll help tonify the tissue. So we tend to formulate support around the condition, which is why a formulation can be better sometimes than a single item.
That's what I like about your parasite product. It also has fennel in there too, right? And why did you add the fennel too?
Yeah, we add fennel to the digestive formulations, because sometimes when you secrete, people feel a little gut discomfort.
Yes.
And fennel is like calming to the gut. Yes. So fennel would be soothing, calming. We don't put it in that formulation so much, because actually Garrya, which is not well known, it's known by medical herbal practitioners, and it's really hard to get. It's not in commerce. We actually hire someone to go down to southeastern Arizona in the Chiricahua region, and they have to wild harvest it for us once a year, because you can't get it anywhere else.
Wow.
It's the strongest anti-cramping herb that exists.
Wow, very
fennel does that too, but it's just not strong enough for, parasitic cramping.
What you're dealing with. Do you ever recommend a time to actually do a parasite cleanse? There's the full moon, there's a lot of different theories that are out there on when to do parasite cleansing, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, this is my take. If you don't have, active parasitic infections and common yeast stuff or irritable bowel, do you really need to be doing that? Because, the body wants to heal itself and find homeostasis and be okay. And if you're already eating bitters and you're secreting really well, and you're taking immunomodulators, your body is fighting stuff off all the time a bit. If you're living in places with suspicious well water, you're traveling frequently to countries where you're around things that you're not normally used to, especially if it's a second or third world country, okay, that gives me cause to pause.
That's right.
And if you're going to do that, it depends on the life cycle of the thing you think you might be treating. The longest that might be, Giardia, where I may do it for a month, because the life cycle of active to egg, or whatever system, you got to take things for a month. Some things, 2 weeks is plenty where you can take things, and you want to go for it, take, like the parasite formulation, maybe 2-3 times a day, and go for it and be done, realizing that while you're doing that, there's going to be a cleanse. You might have looser stool. You may feel a little bit achy while you're doing that, and that's being part of the healing response. Your body's fighting it off. Fine. Yeah. It shouldn't be so uncomfortable that you feel sick. Then you should be backing off. You don't need to be doing that to get better. It's just too much.
Yeah.
So, you can be doing things like that. If you have, let's say, maybe not parasites, but, you're prone to having yeast infections, especially in women. And, some thrush in the mouth periodically. You have a lot of allergies, and there could be a yeast side to that. Or chronic, even eczema can have a yeast side to it with itchy, dry eczema type skin.
Or nail fungus.
Fungus. You drink, you eat a bunch of fruit, lots of sugars, and then you get worse because that really feeds it. And again, like allergies, itchy, eczema type skin. Okay. You're taking herbs for that, but maybe you need to do this, 3 times a year for a week or two. And just see if that helps. That's a sign.
That's right.
That tells you something that, remember that you go to your physician, this is stuff that they don't acknowledge as a pathology that they don't look for.
You're right.
So if you say, can you tell me, do I have this? They'll go, well, if you're not running the bathroom with, diarrhea, you don't have parasites. The end. right?
Exactly. That's so true.
So sometimes you got to learn from a naturopathic, natural standpoint. You're taking things for your allergies and your eczema, and you go, well, but why? Yeah, there's some other factors that make this chronic for me, and you got to be thinking along these lines to try to help turn around. And taking probiotics at the same time. And remember, you're trying to get the good flora on the inside. It's also on your skin. So if you're using antimicrobial soaps and house cleaning products all the time, you're going to have yeasty fungal skin. It's just the way it is. So you want to use really basic soap and don't use household cleaners that are antimicrobial. You're going to create super germs anyways.
That's
You
right.
don't need to be doing that, and it's going to affect your outer layer of skin's natural flora as well. And a lot of people don't think about that.
And I'm wondering if we're seeing more of that because of COVID, or all the hand sanitizing and everything people are on. We're seeing more of these type of problems because of that.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
We're over sanitation there.
Right, right. Yeah, that's interesting to think of. And, I don't know, but I'm going to be paying more attention to that now, but it would make sense.
Yeah.
We were sanitizing grocery
everything. Yes. Everything.
Contact surfaces. And it's
That's
then we
right.
learned well, you don't have to really do that. Remember, your immune system needs something to do. That's how you stay strong. If exogenous external things always killing stuff, your immune system gets weak.
It does. You're right. It needs to always be active. And that's why it's so important for us to keep it modulated the best we can. So I totally agree.
So those things are helpful. Not some other herbs, Pau d'Arco, capsules and tea. It's not heroic in killing an acute situation. But if you tend to be that person who gets stuff, it can keep you in a good place that simply by, it's not as strong as oregano oil, but Pau d'Arco capsules, liquids, teas, that's one that's like that. Neem is kind of like that. They kind of keep you in a good place.
So you put neem and Pau d'Arco pretty much in the same category as far as strength goes? Yeah,
neem's stronger. Neem is a little bit more antibacterial, whereas Pau d'Arco is mainly antifungal. For the most part. I wouldn't use Pau d'Arco for a bacterial infection, really. So there are some differences, neither being super heroic, but neem is has some antibacterial properties. You can find salves with it sometimes. Even in India, you can find toothpicks made from neem to pick your teeth, and it kills the bacteria in your teeth to prevent periodontal disease. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly right. So what about like ringworm or pinworms? We see a lot of that with kids these days. Any differences or using different herbs for that?
At the same orientation.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're going to use oregano oil topically, like from the dropper bottle, I would dilute it in a lotion or an oil because it's so strong.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, one part being the oregano oil. Because if you use it by itself, it can feel like it's hot. And it can make the skin a little bit red because it is super aggressive. So you can use it there. You can use it in the spray bottle diluted with the colloidal silver, and it has a little olive leaf in there as well. And those can help kill those things. And then, especially with kids, I just make sure if they're taking long baths and using antibacterial soaps all the time, and antimicrobial stuff you're washing your clothes with, and dish detergents, and I think it's a bad idea. You got Febreze blowing around and it's trying to kill stuff.
All the plug-ins and everything else going on that people's using their house.
Those are not natural products. That's kind of harsh, reactive, perfumes that have consequence.
Yeah.
So with kids, if it's chronic, you wanna. I put them also on a probiotic, for that kind of stuff. Even to affect yourself topically, and be careful about topical applications of all the other things we're talking about.
That's right. So really the bottom line is, I mean, let's start from the beginning there. So number one, we talked about dealing with your stress response, because that's probably one of the number one things that mess with people's gut environment already. Like you said, low stomach acid, enzyme production, breaking things down. Number two, get your gut healthier, right? Create that environment using the bitters and so forth to try to stimulate more stomach acid to create that right pH in the GI tract. That way it stops the overgrowth of that bacteria and yeast and things to do that even in the gut. And then the immune modulation side of it, where we can to keep that immune strong. Like you said earlier, I think it's very important to not lose focus on that, even though we're on the other side of this, we hope, the post-COVID era. So that's a great way to look at it, Mitch. That's why I love having you on the show, man.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah. And again, these supplements, they're cumulative, yeah, you're summing it up really well. And I think what a lot of people don't do is separate out, what do I need acutely because I'm flaring? And the goal of supplements is not to need to take any of that stuff because you don't flare anymore.
Exactly.
And you just feel better all the time. And that leads to longevity and happiness. And
I totally agree. And that's, like you said, when it comes to parasite and yeast cleansing, I mean, that is an acute issue for really bad problems, but it's stemming from a breakdown of another system, usually the GI or, the imbalance of the stomach acids that can definitely create that environment. So it's at least getting to the root of the problem and not putting Band-Aids on it anymore, right?
Right. So what do we take every day to stay in a good place so we don't end up in the acute flared state?
Yes.
And that's the turf of the holistic medicine. I remember when I first started, we called it alternative. And, it was like the weirdos doing weird woo-woo stuff on the side.
We were voodoo back then. Yes, exactly.
And now we're complementary and we're mass market. It's like we've been accepted. And as people are getting it and they're incorporating, and it's, thank God, it's just part of a healthy lifestyle.
So true. I mean, we know so much more about the body now, even though we don't know everything yet. We know so much more of how these are actually working in our system and trying to fix the root issue. And, for so many years, we were putting Band-Aids on things. And now we understand why this herb fixes a system and not necessarily puts that Band-Aid over the problem. That's right. It's a whole new world now, new era. And Mitch, I always love having you on. You're always a wealth of information. Thanks so much for doing this today.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a pleasure. Hopefully it was helpful for anybody and everybody.
I'm sure it will be, Mitch. All right, we'll talk again soon.
Okay, cheers. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Healthy Approach podcast. Be sure to subscribe if you like this podcast and help us spread the word by rating and sharing with your friends and family. If you'd like to learn more about what we talked about here today, go to sunflowershop.com, that's shop with 2 P's and an E, or visit us at one of our 2 locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.